The true power of these models is really unleashed when you can consume the outputs of these models in context of where you work. And that's why Einstein GPT is blending in that generative technology into the Salesforce products. My name is Reinier van Leuken. I'm a product manager at Salesforce, responsible for the Einstein product lines, or at least part of this portfolio. I'm also a data scientist. I completed a PhD in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I've been working at Salesforce in this domain now for 6 years. I've been very lucky to have been part of the Einstein journey so far. And right now we're taking it to a whole next generative level. So very exciting to talk about these topics today.
Yeah, and thank you for being here, obviously. And we have, well, let's do that at the end. Yeah, because I don't see it here anywhere, but we'll do that at the end. So thank you both for coming. My name is Luuk Martens. I'm the practice manager for data analytics at Nextview. And for the past 10 years, I've been in the consulting world, helping clients on all kinds of data topics, from master data management to business intelligence to data science. And for the past 5 years, I've been focusing at Nextview on everything that Salesforce does and what artificial intelligence and data mean in the CRM world. And today we're going to talk a bit about the latest, is it a hype or not? I don't know how we're going to classify it yet, but at least there's a lot of attention, there's a lot of innovation going on currently that we feel that we really need to address for our customers, but also for the whole industry and whoever it concerns. And that's why we invited you here to talk about it. And maybe before we start, Reinier, are there any topics from your side that you would like to zoom in on in this podcast?
Wow. I mean, there's so much to unpack when it comes to this topic, right? You just mentioned yourself, is it a hype or not? I think that by itself is already an interesting question. Are there any signals or early indicators that this is here to stay, or whether this is going to fade away again, like some other innovations that were announced? Sneak preview, I think it's here to stay. But that being said, there is so much to unpack. Like, what are the opportunities? What are the risks? What are the limitations? Where is it going? I mean, I think that we are all very excited about generative AI technology ever since late November last year, when it was, let's say, popularized and launched as ChatGPT, which is just really one instance, I would say, of generative AI. But ever since that moment, I think it has been top of mind for everyone. So there's so much to unpack, and I look forward to touching as much as we can on this topic today.
Okay, maybe let's kick it off with the recent announcement of Einstein GPT and what Salesforce is doing with it. Reinier, could you tell maybe a bit about what the product is and where it's currently at?
Absolutely. Yeah, so actually yesterday at World Tour Amsterdam, here in the Netherlands, regionally, the product Einstein GPT was launched. And 6 years after the introduction of Einstein, as I said, we're now taking it to a whole new level, to a whole new generative level with Einstein GPT. And what that really means is that we are integrating this generative technology into the suite of products of Salesforce. So I think that for most of us, the experiences that we have had thus far with generative AI involve going to a website, for example, ChatGPT by OpenAI, logging into that website and starting to talk to a chatbot, which by itself showed so much potential that people have gotten very excited about it. But nevertheless, it remains something relatively isolated, right? You go to a website, you log in, and you start chatting there to a chatbot. The true power of these models is really unleashed when you can consume the outputs of these models in context of where you work. And that's why Einstein GPT is blending in that generative technology into the Salesforce products, sales, service, marketing, commerce, what have you. And that's one of the things. So we are launching this proposition of generative technology inside of Salesforce products. And moreover, what it also implies is that the models that power these technologies are no longer just these very generic, very widely trained models that have just gotten their wisdom, so to speak, from the broad internet. No, instead, those models will also be more relevant to each particular company's context because they are fine-tuned and specialized in a way to the domain that that company works in. And that's not something that we do as Salesforce for you. That is something that you own as a customer. So you will be able to fine-tune the models and to fine-tune the operationalization of those models such that the output is very relevant for you as a company, for you as an employee, or for you as a customer. So that relevance is very important, and that integration into the Salesforce products is very important. And those are some of the characteristics of those Einstein GPT products that now allow you, for example, to write messages in a sales context. You can simply ask for a reply to be written to a customer that has a service inquiry, or you can ask for a piece of marketing copy to be written by Einstein GPT. So all those use cases that involve generating some content, that is now going to be embedded in all those Salesforce products.
Yeah, so that means that basically if you look at the current state, the current way, if you are even already using it, it basically involves copy-pasting a bit of context, writing sort of a query in language to a chatbot, to ChatGPT, and then sort of copy-pasting that language back into your email or into your application, right? That's sort of the current way how you would do it. And you basically say, well, we take out the copy-pasting and we actually make it like fluently in your user interface of your sales rep or your service agent.
Exactly, fluently integrated in the Salesforce user experience. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, and now you're obviously depending a lot on, if you're at least depending on such a GPT model, you're basically also depending on the model the data it was trained on, right? So it may not have been trained on relevant data for your business. It may not have access to your internal knowledge base, and that's, let's say, the second sort of integration that you're talking about, right? So being able to use your own content to make sure that the bot is trained on the right and correct data that your company already has.
Absolutely, yeah. The current large language models that most people have had experience with are trained very widely. Practically, they have been trained, quote unquote, on the internet. That means that they are super wide, but also in their knowledge, they may be shallow. Because of this breadth, it is difficult to go very deep in your conversation with those models. It means that if you start to talk to this model about something that you know a lot about, your favorite type of music, your favorite band, or whatever topic that you're passionate about, you will soon find the limitations of the model. And there comes this term hallucination. It starts to very confidently speak about the topic, but the content that it produces is not truthful, it's not accurate. And that is because, once again, it's trained very widely, but the consequence is that the output is relatively shallow. If you want to use this technology in a business context, that shallowness is not something that is permissible. It needs to go deep and be trustworthy on a deep level. So what you need to do is take those generic models and make sure that you can adapt them to the domain that you operate in, whether that's your business, whether that's your industry, whether that's your particular customers. So you need to have technology, and that's what Einstein GPT will also deliver. You need to have technology that takes existing large language models, either your own or from an existing vendor, or even open source models that are out there, that takes one of those wide and shallow models, and that you can train it deeply on the data that you have available about your industry, about your customers, about your business. And there are, if I may, actually two ways to go about this. And the first way is actually by not even training the model itself, but by extending the questions that you ask this model. So you ask a model to produce a certain piece of context, but what happens under the hood is that not only your question is brought to this model, but also some contextual data is brought with the question to the model. That's called grounding. You are grounding the model in your domain because you give it actually a lot of information at the moment of query. When you do the query, you give it contextual information. It's sometimes also referred to as what they say retrieval augmented generation. First you do a retrieval, what is this contextual data that's relevant, and together with the prompt you feed it to the model, and then with the strength of language capabilities that this model has, it's able to blend this contextual data with your question and produce a sensible output. That's option number one. It's this prompt engineering. Option number two is to actually change the model itself, to retrain parts of the model with specific data to either your industry once again, or your customers, or your business. And then you can obtain almost your private instance of such a generative model that then truly lives and breathes the language of your industry or of your company. So if you want to produce, let's say, a piece of marketing copy that is written in the tone of voice of your particular company, then that second option is very important, that you can train this model that truly speaks the language of your company. And with Einstein GPT, we will be offering both these adaptation possibilities to our customers. It has been trained on this massive amount of data and then refined to start to behave, actually. That's an important topic that I want to pay some attention. Those models at first were not behaving very well. GPT-2, GPT-3, they have not been the models that OpenAI released as powering ChatGPT. There was actually a refinement stage applied to those models before they were considered to be behaving well enough to serve the purpose of a chatbot. And that actually involved a lot of human observation. People were talking, human observers were talking to these models, and they were receiving output from the models, and then they were giving feedback. Is that harmful? Is that accurate? Is that maybe even a biased or a very toxic reply? And those response and feedback pairs in turn started to serve as input to another model. Because of course we cannot keep grading the output of the model all day long. There's a limit to the scalability of that approach. So also that you want to automate, right? So those output appreciation pairs were used to train observers, mechanic observers, so that in the end we could take out the human observer of the process again. You train an auxiliary, a secondary model that acts as a human observer, so that then this model can be trained very, very deeply and very thoroughly to produce output that now the mechanic observers agree with. So that is one of these scalability tricks that in this case OpenAI, but many others have followed the same paradigm, have applied to grow these models into responsible models. And that's what's commonly referred to as RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback.
Yeah, and that human feedback, so it means that they first actually had a human in the loop.
That's right.
But they actually automated that human in the loop.
They automated the human observer.
Okay.
Yeah.